Okay, welcome to the Ultra Running Sam podcast. Danny Bent.
Hey, thanks, Sam. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Thanks for sorting it out. We had a bit of a nightmare with the schedules, but we're here now. We're doing it. Okay. So to just give you your introduction, then tell me if I'm wrong. You're an ultra runner. You're an adventurer. You're a writer. You're a global event organizer. You're a motivational speaker. And finally, you don't mind being naked on some of your adventures. Is that true?
Yes. I mean, the funny thing is, I'm actually on this podcast, and the only one that doesn't resonate with me is being an ultra runner, even though I have done things that might be considered ultra. But it's something I'm really wanting to rectify, because I talk a lot about motivation and positivity and all this sort of stuff, and pushing your boundaries and challenging what you think of yourself. And so I actually don't think of myself as an ultra runner, and I have run 30-mile, right now 50 Ks or whatever it is, and I've obviously run across countries and things, but never more than that distance in one day.
Right.
And I kind of feel like maybe it's getting to that time where I need to kind of give one of these crazy things a go. Like, one of my very good friends is doing the Bob Graham. He's like, I was just checking it before I came on, just so I knew where he was and how he was doing and stuff. And he's smashing it out of the park. But maybe it's time for me to give one of those a go.
He's actually doing that now, is he? Today?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's good. Keep updated on that. Great. Awesome.
Yeah, he's looking at about 17 hours. So, it's not world record, but
still good. Yeah.
Yes. Pretty decent.
As long as you're under the 24 hours. A mate of mine did it, and he had a bit of he got around under 24 hours, but he had a bit of a rough time, and then he realised afterwards that he'd actually got COVID. And that's why he felt a bit rough.
Yeah, you hear these things, don't you? But yes, getting in the way.
Well, that's it, definitely. Okay, so all of these different things that you do, because you're a man of many talents in the running world, you seem to be everywhere doing everything all at once. Is there anything that you haven't done we've probably answered that question. Is there anything you haven't done in the running world that you wanted to do? I suppose that's, do a big, scary ultra. What would you think would be the thing you'd go for ultimately?
So that actually isn't true, because I don't really want to do an ultra. I enjoy running for the fun of it, and doing something ultra it just scares me a little bit, maybe. But so, having said that, the thing that is always on my mind is like a really big run, and that isn't whether that's running around the world, or whether it's running from Cape Town to Cairo, or just attempting something totally bonkers, and being able to just to have your purpose to be only to run every day. You wake up, need to be doing is I just think that would be absolutely bloody amazing. But whether it happens or not, it's something that we can go into in terms of just like mental health and stuff. Like, sometimes I just think I want to run away from society and all the norms, and that is my way of running away from it, literally. So I don't know whether that will happen. I don't know, but there's definitely a lot more to come. I've been actually trying to organise a run across Iran, but if you I've got to organise an Irish passport to facilitate getting there without having to pay for a guide, because a guide's like 300 quid a day. So if you want to run across something for a period of many weeks, it's going to become quite expensive. So, and the joy of running is that you can just do it for free. Just stick your trainers on, just go and bloody do it, and bivvy down somewhere, run again. That's just awesome. And I don't like the idea of spending absolute fortune doing it.
No, that's it. Yeah, it's great. It can. Yeah, that's the thing with running. It can be one of the cheapest forms of exercise you can do. Just need a pair of trainers and a pair of shorts, and off you go. Or it can be one of the most expensive things that you do as well, can't it? At the same time, you can go to the other side of the world and have all this fancy, expensive equipment as well to do it. So, although your foray into the ultra world is not, you've done multi-days and everything like that. what's your sort of, where are you comfortable then distance wise? Because I know obviously you did London Marathon, didn't you? And did sub 3.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So, awesome. Your training went well for that.
Well, I'd always thought I was a 200-meter runner. I was like a properly competitive, but just going and doing 200 meters was never. It's just like such a waste of time to be at a meet for one. You could be there Saturday and Sunday and do one 200-meter race, low 20 seconds, and that's all you do all day. And that doesn't suit my personality or my energy type. And so, but then actually, I got tested with all sorts. Had my blood tested, had my lactate done, had my kind of muscle composition done by this company Blizzard in Sheffield recently, and they were like, all the readings that they were getting, all the information is that you're actually a long distance runner, not a sprinter, and which actually is, I took that to be super positive, because I definitely have the speed. That's something I don't have to work on. That's just something that's innate. But actually, if my body is more suited to marathon, then I got a sub 3 at the weekend, but that maybe there's a lot more in there. Like this guy was saying, you don't need, all you need to do is run the perfect marathon and you can get a 2:41 right now. He's like doing all the stats and everything. So I'm way too heavy to be a marathon runner. I thought, well, I've got, I'm allowed muscle and a bit of fat because I'm a sprinter. Actually, maybe that's not true. I'm just like been eating too many biscuits. I'll bloody love a hobnob. So if I open a packet of hobnobs in the house, it goes. It's like I'm like a Hoover. So maybe I need to cut them out, and then I'm going to be a little bit faster.
Brilliant. So, what was your route into running then? Because what was your sort of your childhood and your upbringing? Because I know that I saw that the story about your mum and the London Marathon. What's your sort of life and the involvement that running's had in it?
Yeah, well, I guess my introduction was my dad, probably, because he was a top class ultra runner back in the day when ultra running wasn't even a bloody thing, and he'd do those 24-hour races on the track, and all the craziness that ultra runners do, so he'd go out training, and as a boy, I probably wanted to spend time with my dad, and I'd go out and I'd kind of hold my mum's hand, and she was running at the time, but she's just less competitive. She just runs for the love of it, and she'd hold my hand, and I'd run 10 meters up the hill, 10 meters down, and my dad would be doing like 200-meter reps or whatever it is, and so he'd turn at the top, we'd turn, and then he'd run past us, fly past us, and I'd turn, and then we'd turn at the bottom together. So that was about 2 years old I was doing that. So it kind of, I remember going to a friend's house. I don't know how old I was, probably about, 11 years old or something, and saying to my best mate at the time, Ben Shingleton, I was like, what time does your dad go for his run? And his dad wasn't a runner for sure. He was good rugby player in his time, but that time had probably gone by then. It was just kind of looked to just assume that everyone's doing the same as your parents. But and then so I guess dad was that person that got me into it, and he used to train with a guy from Leicester Rugby Club as well, and we'd go to the gym and then we'd go running afterwards and stuff like this. And so there was this kind of competition to be going against an elite rugby player that kind of pushed me a little bit. But the really, like, the thing that keeps me running is my mum's mentality. And like you say, she ran it. She was 70 the week before the London Marathon. And in running the London Marathon this year, she became the first person ever to have run the London Marathon in 6 different decades, like 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and now 70s. With only a kind of deviation of about 1 hour in the time she did at the beginning to what she's doing now. And she just loves it. So she'll go out on the fells out here and every day. Like, it's just something that she has to do. And if she could be in a race and see a nice butterfly, and she'll just kind of follow the butterfly and ignore the race, or she'll stop and pick. She just does it for the love of it. And that is the idea that, like, I don't put too much pressure on myself. Yeah, I'm over 40. It's not, my best times are, you would have thought they're behind me, even though I'm running PBs at different things. But all I want to do is just be like her and just still, we all love running, and have that taken away by some sort of knee or hip injury or whatever else would suck. So I'm just gonna try and hold on to that, and I've got this dream that she's going to do it, be running in her 80s, and she'll do 7 decades. And if I can follow in those footsteps, that'd be amazing.
I think that's probably the key to longevity in running, though, isn't it? Just running because you love running, and not because you're tied to any schedule or trying to chase a race time, or chasing PBs and doing crazy things.
Well, I mean, a lot of people are driven by different things, aren't we? And love of running is one of them. But prove to your dad or whoever else, or there's different ways that we find this drive. And I think to be quite honest, I think doing it for the love of it isn't going to get you to the Olympics or anything like that. It's probably those people that have that, there's something there that's driving them, the beast that drives them within, that will put their training schedule ahead of life. They're the people that will really make it. But
you've got to to succeed, you've got to have the drive to succeed, haven't you, and have that competitive edge to race. But then if you can find just the love of running to keep you going, then I suppose we all run because we love running, don't we? Ultimately, you're not going to last very long if you hate running from the very first step. You probably, although I suppose you can learn to love running a little bit, I suppose. But
I mean, if you're getting into running at a later life, and you go and do a park run, the best example, and you're like halfway around your park run, and your heart's going, you can't breathe. Look, that's the feeling of death right there. And I think that's one of the reasons we love it so much, because you get back from that. If you go hard at a race and at the finish line you can't breathe, your heart's pounding in your chest. That if that just happened to me or you right now, we'd think we were dying. And I think after that experience, you feel more alive, because you've kind of taken those steps towards death, felt what it feels like, and you're stepping back. And I feel that for a lot of the stuff I love doing, whether that's jumping off cliffs into water, or whether it's going cold water swimming, where you, like, as soon as you're into the water, you're kind of slowly moving towards death, and you get back, you get warm, you're like, it's good to be alive.
Yeah, exactly, that's true. Where do you go cliff jumping then?
We're just in Wales, all over the place really, but nothing too very, very serious. But there's a place up a bit north of where I'm at in Sheffield. I'm in Sheffield, and it's up in Doncaster. It's I don't know, it's about 50-foot high bridge, and we went and jumped off that, that is the guy I was with did a triple flip off it. I just jumped off it and nearly soiled myself.
I know I've been quite a few stag weekends and boys weekends in North Wales and South Wales, where we've done coast steering, and part of steering is obviously that you all egg each other on to go up to the higher bits and jump off and everything. And recently in the summer I went down to South Wales, which actually I've not been to South Wales doing coast steering, and there was some amazing bits around. I can't remember where we were now exactly. But the guide was with us, and he had a couple of GoPros, and he got some amazing footage of us jumping off these. It wasn't the highest jumps I've done. The highest ones I've done were in North Wales, where there was one that was an ex-SAS guy was leading us, and he took us around all these jumps, and they were gradually getting higher and higher. And obviously, because it was a boys' weekend, the question was, is there a higher one? And he was like, well, officially, I'm not guiding you. We've finished now. Okay. So, but that ledge up there is where if you want to do a 70-foot one, that is the ledge that you jump off. And he was like, but officially we're finished. So my guiding duties are over now. So what you do now is on your own head, basically. So out of a group of about probably, I don't know, 15 lads, I think there was only about four or five of us that did it. And I went up, I think I was the second to do it. And I because with that kind of stuff, I just have to get it done. If I watch other people doing it, I'll convince myself not to do it. So I was straight up there. I think the stag went first and jumped off, and then I went off. And it was so high that you just felt like you were in the air for so long. You could actually think about stuff while you were falling.
That's it.
But it was crazy. And then one of the lads who was sort of egged on to go and do it didn't really want to do it. But he spent 15 minutes, I kid you not, it was 15 minutes, stood there, trying to convince himself to do it. And I said afterwards, I was like, if I'd have spent more than 30 seconds up there, I wouldn't have done it. I have to get on that ledge and just go, because if I think about it too much, you can just convince it. So fair play to him for him to do it, because that's standing there for 15 minutes, I convinced myself not to do it.
Yeah, that is a brave man. Because you've gone through, like, literally had time to think through everything that can possibly go wrong, and you still do it. Like,
yeah, fair play. Yeah, well, it's great. Anything. So you're the kind of guy that just wants to do absolutely anything, aren't you? You sort of class yourself as an adventurer, don't you?
I mean, yeah, I think more people class me as an adventurer rather than I'm just me. I'm just a dude that doesn't want wants to do what is in my heart or my soul or my brain or whatever like that. So, that's taken. I think, and let's get all things out there. Like, I'm probably a little bit ADHD, so I'm very good at flying in a bazillion directions all at once and actually giving none of them any sort of consideration. So you end up doing all sorts of bonkers things from the more traditional running things to organizing events, taking people on crazy stuff, and just doing stuff just for shits and giggles. And let's go for that right away. Like, one of the best things, one of the things that I think symbolizes who I am more than anything else was when I decided to pogo across Togo just because it rhymed. got this enthusiasm for it, and just bloody went and took a pogo and flew out to Ghana and pogoed across Togo until we got to Benin, and then left the pogos with a school in Benin, and then flew home again. It was a
crazy,
brilliant way to make an unbelievably large number of friends. Everyone wanted to be part of it. It's but as an adventure at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, absolutely. Yeah. So there's like the concept for that it rhymed. Was that the same sort of idea that you had with the Great Norse Run?
No, that is different, because so I mean, we could talk forever, right? Like, let's the first thing I did that was kind of took me into this world really. I did some stuff for Great Britain age group as a triathlete and all that sort of stuff, which was I was probably putting my toe in, but then I decided I fell off a cliff actually when I was on a training camp with those guys, and that I kind of thought, well, I should have died. I landed in a bush that pierced my buttocks, but around me was just jagged rocks, and I should have, my brain should have been splashed all over the rocks. And I just thought at that point there, it's a bit like we were talking about with very close to death, but this was like, I'm drawing a line in the sand of life, and every step from now on is going to be done to how I want it to be done. It's every day is a bonus. And I'd had this dream to cycle around the world and raise money for charity, so I went and did that. And I'm getting sidetracked from where I actually was going with this. But what was the question again?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, well, let's
Great Norse Run.
The Great Norse Run. Yeah. So you come back from something like that cycle where you're on your own, you're cycling through mountains, deserts, war-torn countries, amazing experiences. You come back and people, I could talk to my mates down the pub or wherever I was, and they'll listen for about 5 minutes about that experience, and then after that they want to talk about whatever else they want to talk about. They're bored of that chat. So what the idea behind Great Norse Run was that I wanted to experience an adventure with other people, and I learned on that trip that I'm capable of so much more than I had given myself credit. and I wanted to test that principle with other people. And so there was kind of two things going on. One is I wanted to do something crazy that I'll have a brotherhood and sisterhood who I can chat about with this forever. And we're still doing it now, you know, what is it, 3 years, 4 years later, after having done it, we're forever meeting up. In fact, after the marathon, we were all in the pub together, and we weren't talking about the marathon. We're talking about talking about this crazy bloody adventure we had running across Iceland. But I just kind of came up with this idea, put it out on social media, say he wants to run across Iceland with me. And I'd met a guy who's now a good friend of mine and business partner, Nick, who said, I said I've got this idea to run across Iceland. He's like, well, I've planned a route across Iceland. Do you want me to kind of facilitate this adventure happening? And so he facilitated it. And 20 people, I think like 200 people replied to my post on social media saying, I'm in, I want to come and do it. And once you put the prices out and that worked out a date, we ended up with 20 people. A lot of them hadn't done more than a marathon in their lives. And you know, there's one guy I always go back to, who's a 58-year-old guy, been a heavy drinker, smoker, you know, definitely wasn't your natural running physique. He was already on his journey. This is a guy called Brian. He was already on his journey of changing his life, but this was a test for it. And he'd run a half. I think he'd run 10K before, actually, and before he came out, he ran a half marathon. But like, for your listeners, the Great Norse Run is a run across Iceland that's 9 marathons in 10 days, 9 marathons or ultra marathons in 10 days. And you know, a marathon, half marathon doesn't give you complete confidence that you're going to be able to do that, does it? But we all set off, and we did lose one along the way, but one made it. And you know, there's this beautiful moment at the end when we arrive on the south coast of Iceland, having come from the north, and a guy was making a documentary about it, and Brian is just kind of looking into the sky, and he's like, I ran across Iceland, like this. And you can just, at that moment right there, there's this like big change going on within him, like whether he had no confidence that he was going to make it. He thought he'd be getting in the vehicle and we'd be driving him like, I don't know, half the way or something. And it and he didn't get in the vehicle at all. And this realization for him was that these physical barriers he'd put for himself, you know, like, and we all have them. I've been, you know, it's exactly with doing a over 50K in one day. These physical barriers are just complete and utter ridiculous barriers that we put in our lives, and you have that realization then that they're just complete and utter bollocks. But then the beauty of that is that any other barriers you've put in your life, these kind of limits you've put within your daily life, they're all bollocks as well. And they just take on an air of vulnerability. And if you then go and exceed one of those, whether it's at work or socially or in your friendship group, you push some of those barriers, and you realize they're all rubbish. And actually, to an extent, we're unlimited. The limits, you know, I'm sounding like some sort of cheesy self-help guru, but we are unlimited, and the limits we feel we have are just those ones that we put on ourselves, and they can just be destroyed at any moment, so should we choose.
Yeah, absolutely. So that sort of ethos, then, is that what you do with your, you know, I noticed you obviously do a few public speaking engagements. Is this the kind of thing that you're focusing on? What kind of people book you for that?
Well, all sorts, actually. So I talk about the most popular talk I do is the happiness of being you, and it's a culmination of a load of things. It's just storytelling, but it's storytelling with a kind of moral undertone and a way that makes you feel something emotionally, and tied to those emotions are learnings that you can take into your daily life, your working life, or you can just sit there and enjoy a good storytelling, you know. And so there's two things that are very important with that conversation, and that is, the first thing is, when I was 7 years old, super hyperactive, dyslexic. I was going to school, I'd get red pen all over my book. There was this one day I came home and I said to my dad, I was a bit upset, and I was like, this is what all the other kids are doing, and this is what I'm doing. And my dad just kind of looked me square in the eyes and he said, don't worry about what anyone else is doing, just be the best version of yourself. And I just wish that every child got the lessons from the adult in their life, and that just has led me on this kind of beautiful life where you don't really have limits. The limits are you, and I'm not striving in anything I do to be as rich as someone, or as fast as anyone else, or as talented or successful as anyone else, because what's the bloody point in that? Because, and again, cheesy guru, it's like, you can be I could be a second-rate Steve Jobs, or I can be a top-rate Danny Bent, and those people that choose to be the top rate of the top version of themselves are probably going to go further in life and be happier. And I was actually waiting in a sitting room. They were taking all our clothes off, giving us army khakis to go on this show I was on called Ultimate Hell Week on the BBC. And I got this email through on my phone just before I handed it over to them, and it said I'd been voted one of the 100 happiest people in the UK. And so it's true, but it all stems back to what my dad said, because I've just lived purely to me, and I've not worried. I have a really strong moral code that I stick to, and I have been a big support and done good things, raised a lot of money for, but they are only done because it's a drive within me. I'm not doing it for anyone else. I'm doing it for me. And I think that's what's led to that happiness, and obviously that happiness, the 100 happy list, is released at the same time as the 100 rich list is in the Times. And I always say there's no surprise that there's no crossover between the two. But that led to people contacting me and asking me to talk about happiness and give them some tales from cycling to India, pogoing, running across Iceland, raising £500,000 running across America. And I've been spoken at Google, TED, Twitter, HSBC, Nike. I did a tour in the US for Nike. It's just like, what? This is but it's brilliant, and I love it. And I think because I love it, the people who are there love it. They feel something. A lot of people come back to me afterwards saying this has changed their life, which is just complete and utter rubbish. All it's done is just open a slight door in their life where they can see that there's way more beyond. And I was talking to someone recently, and they said, all I do in life is open a door that welcomes the person listening to their 7-year-old self again, and re-engages with that. And that 7-year-old self is just the pure version of you, basically, because when you're 7, you're just doing whatever you goddamn like, isn't it? And I'm not telling them to go through it. I'm not even guiding them through it. It's just like, it's there if you want to. It's bloody awesome if you go through it. So yeah, it's a privilege. And I host stages now. I think being on stage. Well, actually, my deputy head got my mum and dad in and said, do you want to send Dan to drama school rather than keeping him here at this kind of academic school? One, because he's probably going to drag the grades down, and two, because it might give him an outlet for all this energy. But I absolutely love it. I love being on stage, and I've interviewed Mo Farah, Paula Radcliffe, hosting stages, giving talks. It's just a dream. And schools to massive CEO entrepreneurs, all this sort of stuff. It's great.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think that kind of resonated with me, what you said, which is obviously the whole point of that story, isn't it, when you were a kid. I think that having your dad say that to you, do you think, is that because your dad also recognized that in himself as well, and that's why he was saying that? Because we've had something similar with my daughter, she's now 12, She's dyslexic, and she like really, she really struggled for a few years while they were trying to figure out what to do with her and everything. And then once they actually said, she's dyslexic, we were just said to her, it's amazing that it's recognised in schools, because when I was at school, and about a year, so I left. I was born 79, so I left school in the 90s, 96. Yeah, I was the same as you, red marks all over my books, but I loved the things that I loved, and I was always passionate about them. But academically, it was always must try hard, and I always felt like didn't really fit in at school with the academic side of things. I was more interested in art and sport and doing all these things, creative things. And that's the same for Tilly, my oldest, that she's super creative and got a brilliant mind, but pen on paper, she struggles. And so we, like your dad did with you, because we recognized it in ourselves, both of us, my wife as well, we're both on the spectrum of dyslexia. So we both have just said, you be you, just enjoy what you want to do. Do you think that's half is that something that you've taken genuinely through your life, that support of your parents to sort of do whatever you want and be whatever you want?
I mean, it's interesting actually, because I don't think my dad has that. He probably would be more on the opposite end of the spectrum. He's very very organized, and he's terribly bad at being organized, but there's something about him which is like, I don't know, it's very, very different. My mum is much more similar to me, and yes, I think like I actually, when I got to uni, they recognized my dyslexia, and I had a little bit of extra time in my exams. I had to choose pure. I studied maths, and I studied pure maths because I couldn't understand the questions if it was applied. I couldn't read the question. Like if you turn that question into an equation that I needed to solve or something, or told me what the actual question was, I could do it. But read it, I couldn't find it within all that text. Mm. And yeah, so I know it's yes. And then then it allows you to thrive as soon as you realize. And dyslexia is, you're on some sort of spectrum that doesn't allow you to fit into this, like, the mold of society, but it's absolutely 100% a super strength. And I would not choose at any singular point to not have that in my life, because it's like, I like music and I like art, but I think my artistry is in life. It's that kind of creating, and it's creating what suddenly arises in yourself, and turning it into something. And especially if it can be turned into something tangible that benefits other people as well, that's just like super mega cool. But it's interesting, because I was sitting at Parkrun this morning to the marathon, and I was looking after my niece, who's also very dyslexic, and she's trying to get me writing. And so this is the beauty of, I actually wanted to say this about your oldest, is that I spent those years with red pen in my book, and came back from that trip across India. And I've been writing blogs, which terrible spelling in them and everything, but and grammar, like, what, I didn't even know what to do with that. But people were loving them, and so they said, why don't you try and put these together and turn it into a book? And I did just that. It took me 9 months to do it. But mainly, I actually did it for my niece and nephew, so they'd know that their cool Uncle Dan had done something pretty rad in his time. But by the end of writing the book, it got picked up by a publisher from San Francisco, and they got published. It sold, and which makes it a bestseller, and then it started winning awards. And so that's probably the greatest thing that's ever happened to me, because I thought so little of myself on a literary basis, and then suddenly you're winning. I literally went to a black tie thing. I had to go up and pick up a prize and give a talk at the end of picking up a prize for your book. And I was actually like going back to what I was actually talking about. I was with my niece this morning, and she's I said to her, I really want to write some more, because she loves writing, and she's very, very dyslexic, maybe worse than me. But she's also more creative. She's like Tolkien, and she creates these worlds in her mind. and she knows exactly where everything is, what's happening, how they're all interacting. And I'm like, whoa, this is blowing my mind. Information you're creating in your head. But she writes these books, and then she'll get halfway through, she'll get bored of it, and she'll start another world. But I was saying to her I wanted to start writing again, and so she said, I'm gonna help you. And so she sets me little challenges to do each week, and we were doing one whilst her mum and dad were running parkrun, and we had 10 minutes just to create a poem about something falling to earth. And her something falling to earth was a giant piece of pizza where someone was kind of was eating the earth, and mine was about a falling leaf, the last leaf on earth that fell to the ground. And probably quite similar in there. Hers is just a lot more bonkers than mine was. But yeah, it's just really, really nice. And it's just nice. I love the fact that I can be a little bit of I hope I'm a little bit of an inspiration to her as well. At least to my sister, I think I am. It's like, well, yeah, and you may be struggling right now in certain areas, but this bit is absolutely blowing up amazing. And so, you know, inspiration to her to keep encouraging her daughter. I'm sure Anya's got enough inspiration of her own rather than looking at me, but you know, piece of inspiration there.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's I suppose enthusiasm is infectious, isn't it, as well? You know, how enthusiastic you are about things, it rubs off on other people, doesn't it? They want to try it as well. Yeah, that's
my family basically. We're very if nothing, we are an enthusiastic bunch. If you ask my brother-in-law, he'd probably say a little bit too enthusiastic. It wears on him a little bit, but we just love life. Like, why on earth would you not love this life? But let's put a proviso in there, because it is really important. Like I have on my Instagram, and I've been voted one of the 100 happiest and all this sort of stuff. Like, it's not all roses. And earlier this week, I think it's probably marathon come down, to be quite honest. I had a few days where I was just like, what is the point? What on earth are you doing? Like, yes, I've done some nice things that have caused change in the world and this stuff, but I'm still like, that's just the tiniest fart in the whole atmosphere in terms of what impact it really is having. And so you kind of sometimes you question things, and and you feel low, but you can ride those waves and come out of it. But I think it's really good for your listeners to be celebrated for my happiness and positive outlook. But I'm still a bloody human being, and I still have shit times, so just like everyone else does.
Do you think sort of having that mindset of looking for the good in things, do you think that when you speak to people and it has this profound effect on them, and they realize that they've sort of been focusing on the negative in life and not being happy? Because I know I was sort of, as I've got older, I've kind of realized that if you're always chasing after something, you're never going to get it, are you? If it's happiness, it's cliche, isn't it, that happiness isn't a destination, it's a journey.
Yeah.
But it's true, isn't it? It's true that you go through life, if you constantly think, I'll be happy once I've done this, I'll be happy once I've done that. Like with me with ultra running, it was, I'll just be happy when I win a race. When I win a race, then everything, I'll have completed my life's ambition of being an ultra runner, and everything will be amazing, and that will be great. And then I went and won one a few years back, and nothing changed. Everything is still the same. And not that winning an ultra should be, a thing that you sort of assign your happiness to. But for me as a runner, that was a goal that I always wanted, and I thought that I would be super amazingly happy because I'd done it, and I was at the time. But then you realise that the next day you just go back to no one cares that you've won that ultra. You go back to your normal life, and things move on. So life, is that part of the thing that you talk about, that you've got to sort of forget about destinations, concentrate on what you're doing now, and find the joy and the happiness in that?
That's kind of it's not a topic that I go into too much when I'm actually speaking. But I mean, I talk about, you know, looking at what's happening in your life and finding the tiny little positive that you can take from it, because nearly everything, I'm not going to say that everything has a silver lining, but you can normally find something that is slightly positive, and that can totally and utterly transform a situation. But so when you started talking, I was thinking about that kind of analogy that when you go and you buy, let's say I'm going down to the secondhand car dealer down the road, I'm like, oh, a blue Volkswagen Polo, that's a nice car, I'll buy it. And you now own a Volkswagen blue Polo. But then when I'm driving around town, I'm like, oh, there's another Volkswagen blue Polo and another Volkswagen blue Polo and another Volkswagen blue Polo. And I think that transcends, like, you can do that for any belonging, but you can actually do that for anything else you're holding on to. So if you're in a negative mindset and you're looking at all the bad things that are happening to you, you start seeing the bad things that are happening in the world. You start seeing the bad things that are happening during your daily life. But if you can change that and you can make it so that you're feeling positive, I mean, we all feel that, you know, that's nothing new, is it? Like, if you're feeling good inside, you start seeing good everywhere. And but you can kind of trick your mind in something down at the end of the day, whether that's gratitude, kindness, things you're feeling happy about, whatever. One of the reasons that works is because I love the idea of writing something down that's kind about someone you don't know, write something down that's kind about someone you do know, write something kind of about someone that's close to you, and then something kind about yourself. And then, you know, you do that every day. I suspect it probably takes you about 2 or 3 days before every day, as you're going through life, you're looking for that thing that you're going to write down. So when I'm speaking to you as a stranger in my life, I'm looking for something kind about you to talk about. And then, because it makes my life easier, because I'm not gonna have to sit at home thinking, oh God, what was a kind thing that happened? Like, find them on the spot, make a little mental note to put that down. And you know, you get positive, see positive. It's pretty simple, really. It is. I'm sure in loads and loads of cases it's not as simple as that, but because you don't want to belittle anything that is going on in people's lives, which, you know, life is hard, society is hard, you know, getting through a singular day is challenging because of the things that we have thrust upon us, the norms that are expected of us, relationships. It's all like you're negotiating your way through at all times. But if you can just try and pinpoint tiny little bits of positive thinking within that, it can just make everything a lot easier.
That's great advice. I think that's something we all need to hear, isn't it? That we can find the positives in a daily thing. I've not heard anyone describe that process before of writing things down every day, and then that will sort of trick your mind into then trying to find all the positives on a daily basis. Yeah, great advice. Okay, thanks for that, Danny. We just had a bit of a technical issue and we went off, but we're back on again. So just a change of direction, and I wanted to talk to you about your recent running success. So I saw that you, I didn't realise actually that you live up in Sheffield. So I'm just outside of Derby, between Derby and Ashbourne. So Ashbourne is probably about 15 minutes away, so right on the edge of the Peak District. But I noticed you did the Dale, what race was it? The 25.
Yeah, about it's called the what's it called? 9 Edges. It's called the 9 Edges. Yeah, it's just a route A to B point to point, covering off as many of the peaks, edges, like all my favorite running routes in the world. Really, in the world, I just absolutely love it. We were out yesterday. It was hailing on us. Like literally, it was a river from the sky. And I'm still like, this is the best ever. It's just the area around us. It's just so runnable. It's so interesting. It's like, it's a trail, but it's got, you know, it's fell. It's got boulders and scree and all sorts of stuff to negotiate. Yeah, and that 9 edges, like that, I've got a poster in my house, just to my left here, of that run. I just absolutely love it, and I've obviously been getting fit for the marathon, and I've got fit by running in the peaks. It's not like I'm road runner. I'm got gnarly fit, and I entered that like, I don't know, 3 weeks before the marathon, or 4 weeks before, 3 weeks I think, and then just set off as in 3rd position, ticked off 2nd position, and then I got to halfway, and they're like, 1st place about 5 minutes ahead of you. I was like, oh, this is it. There's no way I'm catching him, but let's just try and keep this 2nd place, because I was hoping for a top 20. And then I was in 2nd. I was like, wow, if I can keep it in the top 3, that's unbelievable. It's my favorite race. To do well in that is unbelievable. And then I don't know how long it took, another 6 miles or something, and I saw this green jacket ahead of me. I was like, that's the same green jacket the winner, like the guy who's in the lead, is wearing. And like, either that's a coincidence, or I'm gaining on him. And then I was just like, right, don't lose yourself, don't get too excited and just like spend all your matches all at once. And then just kind of went past him, and I was like, are you in the lead? And he was like, yeah. I was like, right, you were. No, I didn't think that at all. But it's just really lovely. And I come in. My mum and dad were there because it finishes right near their house, and you win a pint at the end of it. So that that's nice.
Perfect.
So, yeah, special moments, you know. And actually, it was beautiful to do that, because it took the pressure off the London Marathon, because unless I was going to win the London Marathon, then it wasn't going to trump what I'd achieved already through kind of from, I don't really do blocks of training, but like through this block, I've already succeeded. So anything I do in London is just going to be, going to be even, a nice bonus on top. And actually, I know we were talking earlier on about something or other, and just loving running, and I was much more happy with in terms of going to the marathon. Like, I just kept my splits super tight. For nearly all of it, I varied by 2 seconds a mile, and I was like, that, I wasn't looking at my watch. I was just I was in a groove. I was like, right, I'm sticking to this. And I in the last kind of mile, I think I was like 4 seconds slower than I was on my fastest mile, and I was more impressed with myself for that, just the control it takes, because I'm not a control person normally. The gun goes, and I'm like, yes, I've got all this energy to burn, and then a few miles down the line, you're like, oh, I've run out. So I was really pleased with that, and obviously getting a nice time is great. But I love these races, whether it's the 9 edges, and all the people you're walking past are like, oh, well done, as you go on. And they're just people going out for a walk in the peaks and having a nice time. But they're, that human interaction is just so beautiful at that moment. And obviously with London, if you haven't been to watch that marathon, it's one of the most beautiful things to watch. The acts of humanity that you see are, what an example to everyone around us. Like, just whether it's someone holding someone up who's just completely blown it, and they're just like, well, you've got to get to the finish line, I'm going to help you, I'll forfeit my own marathon so that you finish, or my own marathon time. Or these people doing it for charity, or there's people running and you see on their backs for dad, and you're just like, those things are super highly emotionally charged. But then all the way around it, you've got bands, DJs, crowd just like cheering your name and going mental. But it's just such a beautiful example how millions of people can come together and actually, be positive and warm and create something really truly magnificent. And it's a privilege to be in that kind of river of runners running through London. But it's also, and I went back afterwards. Obviously, we were talking at the beginning. I wanted to kind of make sure she'd had a cold that week, and like a cold knocks you, doesn't it? And 26.2 miles as a 70-year-old knocks you at the best of times. And I wanted to go back and cheer her, so I'm just standing next to random people at the barriers with about a mile to go, just waiting for her and cheering everyone on and being part of it in that sense as well. It's just an absolute blooming joy. I love it.
I think that's what's been missing, hasn't it? For the last 3 years, we've missed those mass participation, like joyous events where everybody's all crammed in together and you're all cheering. And yeah, it was a strange time, wasn't it, to have that go away? Does it feel like London Marathon is back now and that's it? It's
definitely. I think actually last year it felt even more special because I run it every year for London Pride, Fuller's London Pride, the beer, which is, I love that kind of oxymoron, I think it is, of like you're running a marathon, but you're representing a beer. It's just, like, when we go to the pub after, we get absolutely skim full of beers as well. And it's just brilliant to kind of bring in both parts of your life. You don't have to be a super serious running life. So yeah, I ran it last year, and last year it felt really special. It was something, because my whole life, everything I do in life, all the money that comes in, all the stuff that I give out is all about community and bringing people together, whether that's in a room for a talk or whether that is creating a relay in every single country of the world or whatever it is. It's all about community. And so for 2 years I'd had none, and everyone else had none. And then suddenly you're running through the streets of London and people are like, sod this COVID, we're going out there and we're going to cheer those warriors, like marathon runners are. They're kind of warriors, like even more so you crazy ultra runners. You're the real warriors that kind of, you come across the finish line dragging your legs and everything. But I just think it was last year it was very, very, very special. But again, this year it's give you something so pure and deep, and you can just hold it inside yourself, and it feels awesome.
Amazing. Just talking about the community then, and you were talking about just explain for people about the World Relay and how that that idea came about, and then what's happening with it and everything.
Well, that's probably my proudest moment of all time, is after the Boston Marathon bombings, just sitting there in my kitchen in Devon, I was at the time, and just thinking, I've got to do something about this, because these are our people. The running community's given me, love, friendship, and this supportive community around me. And then suddenly you're hearing about that community, those people that have worked their butts off. They're not financial people benefiting from the badness of the world. This is people doing beautiful things to the world, the way we were just talking about London. And to have them be attacked by 2 bombs, 4 people died, tens of people lost their limbs. It just felt to me something that I had to do something about, and organize this, came up with this idea to do a relay from LA to Boston across the States, broke this 3,300 miles up into 10-mile segments, chucked it out on put it onto a website, chucked it out on social media, and hoped that people would sign up. The American people would sign up to carry. We'd created this peace lily baton from LA to Boston, and the idea really was just to say, we're feeling your pain from across the pond. And it was a showing of solidarity, and we needed 330 runners to carry in this baton continuously across the States. And we hope, we thought we might raise a couple of £1,000 doing it, which would have been amazing. But what actually happened is thousands of people signed up, and within 7 weeks of the bombings happening, we were setting off from LA, and the American people carried that baton across the States without stopping through tornadoes, crazy lightning storms, everything. And they got it to Boston, and the Boston Marathon finish line was the finish line of the relay, as well as obviously the marathon. And by the time we got to the finish line, we'd raised $600,000 for the people affected by the bombings, and that money actually was meaningless in comparison to that showing of it to the people affected, in comparison to the showing of solidarity, really. And actually, just for the people that took part, it gave them a way to express their own grief, and not just their own grief for the bombings, but their own grief for whatever's going on in their own lives, whether that's cancer, or a parent with cancer, or a child that's been bullied at school, or you've been made redundant from your job. It was just a beautiful expression of self and coming together of a community around something so powerful, that people were supported within whatever, they felt supported in whatever they were going through. And again, like, passing a baton from one person to another, we, like, the stories that have come out of America in the last 3-4 years, the passing of the baton kind of was able to break some of those down, simply in the way that I signed up for this leg, you signed up for that leg, whether that's a Navajo Native American, or whether it's someone who's living in the flats in New Orleans or whatever it was, or whether it's a CEO of a multi-million-dollar company. It didn't matter who you were all wearing your trainers and shorts. You were passing this baton, and you all belonged, and you all shared this moment, and that was so utterly powerful. And so, I'm super proud of it. And this I could go on forever talking about this, the people that got involved, who've been involved in the bombings and came back to that place of trauma. And John Odom is a perfect example. He carried the baton across that finish line in his wheelchair, with his daughter pushing. 11 weeks, he revisited this place of trauma 11 weeks after actually going through it, dying twice on the operating table, having both of his legs blown to pieces. And it's only more recently that I've really realized how powerful this was. But he had the presence of mind, going back to a place of incredible trauma, to look at me as he went across that finish line. And the finish line represented the end of the relay. It also ended the end of his daughter's marathon, because she ran the last part of the marathon that she hadn't been able to run, completing her own marathon. And she'd written to us saying, I want to replace these memories of the finish line with positive ones, and she kind of replaced those. But he looked up at me, and he just said, Dan, this is when I start to heal. And I just think, what sort of presence of mind, what kind of strength of character does it take for someone to go back to a place like this, to have 1,000 people behind him at this one point, cheering and going wild, and to be able to gift me those words? I just, the guy is incredible. And those words are, like I was saying, like the last few days, the days after the marathon, when I was feeling a little bit low, they're something I can hold on to. They're a life float for me within the depths of darkness that you might sometimes fall, that just pull you to the surface. Like, what you're doing is good. It's your whole lifetime of trying to create good in the world, or trying to create positivity, is worth it for that singular moment. And if nothing else happens, it doesn't matter. Continue on with what you're doing, because it was worth it for that one time. And I feel like a little, whether you can hear it in my audio, but a little kind of choke in my voice at that. Like, what a gift that was from him.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. That he was thinking about you at that moment as well, knowing that he needed to say that to you. And wow, what a story. That's a real, for you, that's a real legacy, isn't it? That it doesn't matter what happens in life, that won't change, that you managed to, you organised that, it happened, it made a real difference to so many people over there. Is there anything else that you've sort of got plans? Have you got plans for anything else coming up that you want to, continue building a legacy for yourself with?
it's quite interesting. I mean, the guys that I work with, because since then we've done relays in London. We broke the world record for in London, and we used that to break down gang culture. And we had people, we had refugees, homeless people, gang members take part in that relay, and it was just, just because of that beauty of passing the baton from one person to another, it just felt like it could do some good in that realm. And during COVID, we did a we had runners in every single country in the world all running throughout the same day, a kind of time zone relay, because obviously you can't pass a baton from one person to another when there's COVID all around, let alone passing it across borders and wherever else. So that was we took things to a little bit virtual, which was amazing. We had people from North Korea, South Sudan, we had about 30 people from Afghanistan run, and obviously US, which is that's because we've got different things happening in these places. But and then actually currently happening right now is a relay called Running Out of Time, and the guys I work with on the virtual relay, they're doing it. It's still under our banner, but I've kind of stepped aside, just too much on and whatever else, and they've taken the lead on that. But it's running from COP26 to COP27. 7,700 kilometers, and this is biking, running, all different types of different types of non environmentally damaging transport. And we're delivering a message from the youth from COP26 to Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, and those guys have done an amazing job. I think it's just about to leave. I think it leaves the UK today, and it'll travel all through Europe and arrive, and hopefully it's going to be read out by a child at COP27 to the leaders of today, and just saying, listen to us, and let's start making a bit of a change, because what governments are doing right now probably is still centered around money, and not, well, I mean, that's true for everyone. That's still true for me. I will take a cheaper mode of transport potentially that I drive because it's easier for me rather than taking the train. And I think we all need to, it's not just the leaders, it's everyone needs to just step up and make a bit of difference to, because obviously the COP is the kind of the leading environmental conference where they get all the leaders along to, and it's absolutely beautiful what the guys have created, and that's also legacy. I'm not even it's hopefully creating a little bit of magic that can make this world a little bit of a better place. And one day, will we do a relay around the world? Maybe, but it's a big old beast that, and there's so many moving parts in something like a big relay, especially when you start taking it into different countries, like the guys have been doing. I know it's been a real headache, making sure that you get permits for everything and all that sort of stuff. So doing the whole world, it's a backer for that, I think, to facilitate that happening. But it's all groovy. We're getting I'm launching my own podcast, and I'm doing adventures all over the world with people and sharing that kind of you're more capable than you think type idea, and I continue giving my talks everywhere. And who knows what it's going to do, because I don't really know what's going to come. It's very hard to plan, because I don't know, I can't make a 3-year plan and say this is where I want to be, because I'm going to be a different person then, and I want to be wherever that person wants to be, not just where I want that person to be. I think a lot of us wanted to be this person on the podium having won your ultra, and that's maybe not where you want to be. Like when you are actually running that, you want to be enjoying it and all that sort of stuff. So
yeah, great advice. Have you got anything immediately that you're working on now for yourself? You talk about writing, and have you got anything coming up? Or
I'm in a kind of transitional. I think like winter is always a kind of a bit like I get into my little chrysalis, and I wait to spread my wings again in spring, because winter isn't really a time for people are getting together anyway for parties and Christmas type things. And I'll be doing some racing, obviously, just fun stuff. And then I think I might be going. I think continuing on from one of the first things we talked about, Pogo Togo. I'm hoping in November I'm going to be going to Kuwait to skate across Kuwait. No other reason, it's a bit of fun. And but then I like rock climbing. I live in the peaks. You can't help but kind of get intoxicated by it. And I'm looking at going off to Sicily and doing a bit of climbing. And I love that cold water swimming. I was actually just searching before we came on here to see whether there's what are the best places to go and dip in Norway. So if you go to some beautiful places that I could spend, I don't really like swimming, but I love getting in the water and getting really cold and doing a bit of breaststroke and getting myself all fired up. And then the best bit afterwards, just having coffee and croissant and warming up. It's a great feeling.
Yeah, you'll definitely find some cold water in Norway anyway, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
So for people that want to follow your exploits and see what you're up to, where's the best place for them to sort of follow you?
I mean, I guess DannyBent.com is the website, which has links to everything I'm doing. But I think the thing I keep up to date the most is Instagram, Danny_Bent. But I'm on all the social medias and everything like that. But Instagram is where I kind of put everything up. Like there's all sorts of cool things happen that you can kind of gain from that. Like, I do adventure grants for people. I normally release those in January, so you can apply for an adventure grant to go and start your own adventure. There's always things to get involved in, whether that's stuff in the Himalayas, whether it's across Iceland. We're looking at going to Tajikistan next year and doing a big run. And everyone's invited. Find out what you're capable of, that kind of story. And forever things. I get 6 marathon places to give away every year. It's worth heading over there just for that chance that you might get one of those, because they're gold dust.
Wow. Yeah. So definitely everybody go and look at the website and get involved and get on Instagram. So I appreciate you coming on and chatting to us. It's been very insightful, and there's a few things I'll take away from it, especially the whole the whole happiness thing and writing things down and trying to be positive. I appreciate you coming on and sharing some of this knowledge with us.
Sam, great. It's been a pleasure. Thanks very much for having me.
Okay. Thanks, Danny. Cheers, mate.
Mate, how much